Alright, it's time to take off the Collingwood rose-coloured glasses for this video and let's look at Reef McInnes in an objective lens when it comes to his new role, the new experiment in the backline as that third/second key tall behind Darcy Moore. Now, what's led to this opportunity? We know we have some shortcomings in the defense when it comes to the one-on-one contest and intercepts as well, and also the fact that Reef McInnes has been tried as a forward despite being initially drafted as a midfielder, and it hasn't quite worked. So it seems like it's the last roll of the dice by Collingwood and Reef McInnes to see if he can become a master of one. Always been a jack of all trades, but not quite good enough to solidify a full-time position in any of the roles that he is competent at. We need to find a role where Reef can excel to ensure that he remains at Collingwood and isn't a VFL player in the future. Now, being at training, I can tell you Reef McInnes has been given full license to pretty much roam freely as he pleases and express himself as a floating interceptor, particularly in match simulation or transition drills where the ground is very open and there's opportunity to play as this intercepting player. An important driver for this has been Darcy Moore sort of stepping back from impacting contest as much and letting Reef McInnes put himself in as many situations and scenarios as possible so he can become a lot more acquainted with it. You see on Friday when I went to training in the match simulation, Darcy Moore, like I said, was sort of just chilling in the back line and barking orders at Reef, trying to get him into the right position at all times and letting him fly for absolutely anything. Like, even when the ball goes on Darcy's head, he would call for Reef to have an impact on that contest as opposed to Darcy Moore trying to get something out of it. That's what a skipper does. He sacrifices potentially improving his game slightly in these moments and building confidence for the betterment and opportunity for younger players like Reef McInnes. Now, I want to preface these negatives that they are extremely constructive and should be seen more as point of improvements as he grows into the role, with the fact being that he's been this defender for merely 6 weeks. So it's very early days, but this is what I'm seeing, and this is what we need to see change or improve over the next, December, over the next 2 months, really. Early days, and if you've seen a lot of the footage that I've shared through the training, and you probably see it from other channels and on Instagram as well, you would see that Reef is spoiling anything and everything. And that is great. It's great to see that he's having an impact and getting there. But there will come a time where we will need to see Reef start clunking those and create rebound 50s from those intercept marks. For Reef to be a player who to become a mainstay as a defender in the role we're asking of him, he would probably need to average 2 intercept marks a game minimum. I would say 2 to 2.5. If he wants to be a second key tall, probably 2.5, and then a third key tall, something like 2. Jeremy Howell averages 2 intercept marks per game on a consistent basis, and then second key tall or intercepting one should be at 3. I mean, Darcy Moore at his peak is intercepting 3 or 4 marks per game. So that's the criteria. Those are the guidelines as to what a interceptor looks like in the role at AFL level on a consistent basis. So that's early days. The spoils are there. Can we change those spoils into intercept marking opportunities and giving us a chance to rebound? Now, I'm going to nitpick at this one and I'll explain why. The spoils in and of themselves, early days, they're not clearing row Z. What do I mean? When he spoils the ball, they're falling short. They're not necessarily going over the boundary line. There isn't an art to spoiling a contest. And that comes from within me as a goalkeeper. There was a lot of craft work on punching the ball. When it comes to corners, crosses, it was always about clearing the vicinity and not spoiling it back into space where a striker might get onto it and tap it back in. Just clearing the boundary line. And someone who does that very well and should be doing craft work with Reef McInnes at some point, or Reef should be doing it on his own, in his own time, to improve that side of things, is with Jeremy Howe. Jeremy Howe is unbelievable with his spoils. When he spoils the ball, you know that ball is getting cleared and will find itself over the boundary line, somewhere safe where where it doesn't need to be, in a close vicinity, in dangerous sectors in our defensive 50. So if you guys can recall, Jeremy Howe does that very well. Maybe go watch some highlights. You'll see what I'm talking about. The other thing I'd like to see Reef improving is with his communication. So when you're in a new role, you're going to be lost, right? So communication probably isn't at the front of the mind. And you also don't want 18 seagulls on the field. As much as coaches encourage everyone to talk, there's always going to be your vocal leaders who lead through their voice. Think Nick Maxwell. Think who else does that right now? Maybe Bruzzy. And then think players who don't really, they're not very vocal on the field. Maybe, who have we got? Dane Swan didn't come out to me as someone who would speak a lot in the field, as more of a quiet achiever. But you know what I'm saying. There's players who are quiet and speak through performance, and then there are players who lead by their voice. You need that synergy in the team. But who's to say Reef McInnes can't be a vocal leader once he becomes more comfortable in a role, understands the patterns of where he needs to be, where the ball is going, where it's coming from. That could be something that he could work on moving forward. And with Reef's speed, he will naturally find himself in handball receive opportunities where a player might take a mark, and he will be that player who gets the ball, along with players like Dan Houston and Josh Dacos. They will break lines with their speed. That means we will need to see Reef improve his kicking efficiencies. It's a little bit of a question mark because I haven't seen a whole lot of it. I've seen good, I've seen okay, I've seen bad. We'll know more going into the season, and it's just another point where if he can have that string to his bow, it makes him quite a versatile running, intercepting defender. I've seen him at training. He can't be caught. Once he's moving at full speed, he's hard to catch because he's powerful, he's strong. Although he doesn't look the biggest, when you're running at that pace and you're pretty solid structurally anyways, you're going to be hard to be stopped in your tracks. You're going to break tackles, and if you could pair that with some good ball use by foot, then that will take his game to another level. Finally, and this sort of ties in with the communication I mentioned, he does get lost in the mess of this new role, and it can be quite a clamorous role. When you're intercepting, you're not necessarily having to worry about a specific player. You do get lost in transition at times and not sure where you need to be because you're usually trying to fill the hole in the D50, trying to predict where the ball goes. Darcy Moore, as I mentioned, is barking orders at him, and it's very clear what the precedent is there, what they're trying to achieve with Reef McInnes. They want him to float around and be in the right position, and Darcy Moore sort of just overseeing that, playing the goalkeeper role or the sweeper and seeing everything in front of him and having a concerted focus on Reef McInnes at the moment. Now, onto the positives. He is definitely training like this is his last chance. His endeavor is there. His body language is always positive or neutral. It's never quite negative. So that's an important trait to have in a time of transition like this. And as I mentioned, he's very fast and powerful. Once he gets rolling with the ball, it's going to be hard for him to be tackled in transition through breaking lines with his pace. He's also got another important trait when it comes to defending, and that is his closing speed in marking contests when there's marks on lead or leading opportunities for the forward, or even just aerial contests where the ball is floating up. His ability to get from point A to point B to ensure that he has an opportunity to impact the contest is always going to be there because of his speed off the mark. The final positive before we get into my prediction for Reef's season next year is a bit of an intangible, and that's his confidence would inevitably be growing with players getting around him. Every time he makes a good decision or makes a 1% of play at training, the boys are getting around him. And that's something I've noticed with the club, even last year with Finlay McRae, when they've got players they're trying to push forward into the spotlight and trying to take their game into a new level and transcend them beyond a VFL player, they really know how to get around certain players to make them feel like $1 million. And that's probably what Reef is feeling right now with all the attention, maybe a bit of pressure, of course, and stress, but he is getting that support internally as well. So confidence is important in this situation. Now, my final prediction for Reef, or not my final prediction, my prediction for now, I prefer that he doesn't get thrown to the Wolves at AFL level in the first few rounds. I'd like Reef to find his feet, maybe for 4 or 5 games at VFL level, really build that confidence, get the intercept marking going, get some ball use in transition, and then take that into AFL level. Maybe let Darcy Moore, Billy Frampton, Charlie Dean handle the first 4 or 5 weeks, see how those lads go, pairing up as a trio, and then if 1, Reef is performing really well at VFL level, and 2, if Charlie Dean or Billy Frampton aren't holding up, then there's your opportunity, and we'll really know what Reef is capable of at AFL level from there. So don't throw him to the wolves, give him some time to work into it. We talk about forwards becoming defenders and defenders becoming forwards. It's not always a seamless transition, and I don't see this one being a seamless transition just yet for Reef, which is why I think VFL would be a good starting point for him next year. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Go Pies.